What if I told you that some of Hollywood's biggest stars were shockingly short? The legends who commanded the screen with their larger-than-life presence were actually nowhere near as tall as you thought. Imagine this: the tough guys, the romantic leads, the heroes, who seemed to tower over everyone. Most of them were barely 5 feet 6 inches. And the best part? Hollywood went to insane lengths to hide it from you. Hidden platforms, secret camera angles, and even specially built trenches. These stars weren't just acting. They were creating an illusion of height. Want to know how these stars fooled the world into thinking they were giants? Stick around, because the shocking truth behind Hollywood's tallest myth is about to be exposed. Sammy Davis Jr. might have been one of the shortest major stars in Hollywood history, standing at only 5 feet 3 inches, but his talent was towering. A singer, dancer, actor, and comedian, Davis's larger-than-life energy made him unforgettable on stage and screen. However, many were surprised to learn that the man who commanded the spotlight had to battle a height disadvantage. Davis didn't let his height hold him back. Instead, he used his extraordinary abilities to captivate audiences, turning his performances into unforgettable spectacles. In films and television, he was often paired with taller stars like Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, but his energy and skill kept the spotlight firmly on him. Hollywood, of course, used some tricks to enhance his on-screen presence. Specially designed elevator shoes added a couple of inches, and directors used platforms or raised positions when Davis shared scenes with taller co-stars. But Davis's true power was his performance. His dynamic dancing, animated expressions, and powerful voice made him seem bigger than his size. Off-screen, Davis owned his height with confidence and humor. When Dean Martin joked about his size, Davis quickly fired back, "I may be looking up at you physically, but musically, you're looking up at me." His charisma and confidence made the height difference irrelevant, proving that true talent can outshine any physical limitation. Alan Ladd's piercing eyes and tight-lipped intensity made him one of Hollywood's toughest stars. Films like This Gun for Hire and Shane solidified his box office legend. But here's the surprise: Ladd wasn't as tall as he seemed. He was barely 5 feet 6 inches tall, maybe even shorter. Paramount Studios worked hard to hide this. They paired him with co-star Veronica Lake, who was just 4 feet 11 inches, making him appear taller. When standing next to bigger stars, the studio went further. Director George Stevens had trenches dug for co-stars like Jack Palance to stand in during Shane, creating Ladd trenches to hide his height. Other tricks included Ladd standing on hidden platforms or Ladd boxes and using low-angle shots to make him look more imposing. His suits had vertical pinstripes, and his shoes had built-in lifts to add 2 to 3 inches. All of this worked together to make him appear far taller on screen. What's interesting is how Ladd's acting style may have been shaped by these tricks. His minimalist approach, using his eyes to convey emotion, matched the subtle height illusion. Ladd may have lacked inches, but his intensity and presence more than made up for it. The camera didn't just hide his height, it made him an enduring icon. These tricks helped craft one of Hollywood's most unforgettable legends, James Cagney. James Cagney didn't need height to dominate the screen. His explosive energy and larger-than-life presence made him an icon in classics like The Public Enemy and White Heat. But here's the shocking part. Cagney, the man who made tough guys look untouchable, was just 5 feet 5 inches tall. While some actors were obsessed with looking taller, Cagney didn't care. In fact, he once said, "I don't care how tall I am or how short I am. I care about whether I can act." But Hollywood still had to get creative to make him look more imposing. Warner Brothers developed a few clever tricks to enhance his stature. One of the most effective? Strategic casting. Cagney was often surrounded by actors who were the same height or shorter, making sure no one would notice the height difference. And when tall co-stars like Edward G. Robinson appeared, Cagney was either seated or positioned on staircases to minimize the gap. Then there was the Cagney angle, a slightly low camera position designed to make him look taller without it being obvious. Director Michael Curtis mastered this technique, which became a signature for Cagney's films. But what really made Cagney stand out wasn't just the angles, it was his energy. His fast-paced movements, bouncing energy, and emotional outbursts commanded the screen. He didn't need to appear tall. His intensity made him seem larger than life. And here's a mind-blowing fact. Warner Brothers even inflated his height in official bios, listing him as 5 feet 9 inches to match his on-screen presence. For Cagney, size wasn't about inches, it was about attitude. Edward G. Robinson. Edward G. Robinson's portrayal of mob boss Rico in Little Caesar made him one of Hollywood's most intimidating gangsters. But here's the shocker. Robinson, the ruthless criminal, stood only 5 feet 5 inches in real life. So how did Hollywood make him seem so menacing? It wasn't just camera tricks, it was psychological intimidation. Directors like Mervyn LeRoy used psychological blocking to make Robinson appear more powerful. In confrontational scenes, he'd often be seated behind a desk, while taller co-stars stood, flipping the power dynamic. And when he got in their faces, it made the tension palpable. But it wasn't just positioning. Robinson had a voice that demanded attention. His clipped, forceful speech made him seem bigger than his frame. Director John Huston once said, "Eddie didn't need to be tall. He had a voice that made him 10 feet high." The studio also played their part. Warner Brothers inflated his height to 5 feet 9 inches in publicity materials to hide his true stature, and interviews were always arranged with Robinson seated. For Robinson, his height wasn't a disadvantage. It made him even more powerful on screen. In Hollywood's gangster world, it wasn't about size, it was about presence. Mickey Rooney, Hollywood's biggest little star. Mickey Rooney may have been 5 feet 2 inches, but he was a giant in Hollywood. As MGM's biggest star in the late 1930s and early 1940s, Rooney's small stature became part of his charm, especially in the Andy Hardy series. Instead of hiding his height, Hollywood embraced it. In his early career, his size made him perfect for playing teenagers well into his 20s. But when he transitioned to adult roles, MGM got creative. Platforms, custom shoes with 3-inch lifts, and clever camera angles made him appear taller. Cinematographer Harold Rawson even used lighting to subtly elongate his frame. But what made Rooney stand out was his attitude. He leaned into his height, using it to his advantage in comedies. Paired with taller actresses, he turned his size into a source of humor. In fact, Rooney said, "I'm not a tall man, but I stand among giants in this business." His talent always outshone his physical dimensions. In the end, Mickey Rooney proved that height isn't everything. It's all about the presence you bring to the screen. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart's tough guy image in Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon made him a screen legend. But here's the surprising truth. Bogart, the man who defined cool, wasn't nearly as tall as his on-screen persona suggested. He was only 5 feet 8 inches and some say even shorter. So how did Hollywood make him seem larger than life? The answer: clever camera angles and careful blocking. In Casablanca, director Michael Curtis used low-angle shots to make Bogart look more imposing, while also strategically placing co-stars like Ingrid Bergman on lower steps or sitting down, creating the illusion of height. Bogart's distinctive slouch and head tilt, often mistaken as part of his tough guy image, were actually perfect for hiding his height. His minimalistic style meant the camera didn't focus on his physical dimensions. It focused on his presence. And let's not forget his wardrobe. Costume designer Ori Kelly's high-waisted pants and tailored suits subtly elongated Bogart's frame. As director John Huston once said, Bogart's physical stature was irrelevant. When he entered a room on screen, you felt it before you saw him. For Bogart, it wasn't about being tall. It was about commanding the screen with his charisma and raw energy. Danny Kaye. Danny Kaye was a whirlwind of energy, charm, and physical comedy, captivating audiences in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty and White Christmas. This comedic genius, known for his rapid-fire humor and dance moves, was only 5 feet 7 inches shorter than many of his leading ladies. Rather than trying to hide his height, Kaye used it to his advantage. His physical comedy relied on constant movement gestures, dancing and contorting his body in ways that distracted from his size. His kinetic energy was so big you rarely noticed his stature. However, when needed, Kaye used some traditional Hollywood tricks. He'd often be placed on raised platforms for romantic scenes, or the camera would angle upwards to create the illusion of height. In his comedic roles, his height didn't just disappear, it became part of the joke. During filming White Christmas, he joked with co-star Bing Crosby, saying, "Between the two of us, we average out to a perfect height. Bing's got the surplus, and I've got the shortage." This self-deprecating humor added to his charm and made him beloved by audiences. Kaye's true magic? He turned what could have been a limitation into a signature style, proving that talent and energy can make anyone larger than life on screen. 7. George Raft. George Raft may have been one of Hollywood's most iconic gangsters in the 1930s and 1940s, known for his cool demeanor and deadly stare. But here's the shocker. He was only 5 feet 7 inches tall. Despite his smaller stature, Raft's screen presence was intimidating, but it wasn't by chance. Raft's gangster persona worked perfectly with his compact, athletic build. His stillness on screen, often standing perfectly still with minimal movement, created a sense of coiled energy, making him feel larger than life. It wasn't about height, it was about the energy he brought to the role. To enhance his presence, Hollywood used the usual tricks: low camera angles, elevated platforms, and custom-made shoes with the lifts. His wardrobe, too, played a part, with suits designed to elongate his frame, and his classic gangster look was never interrupted by his height. But perhaps the most interesting part? Raft's background as a professional dancer gave him an edge. His precise, minimal movements exaggerated his on-screen intensity. Instead of relying on physical height, Raft's quiet menace came from the way he carried himself: calm, collected, and utterly confident. Raft didn't need to be tall to be feared. His confidence and chilling presence made him unforgettable. And that's exactly what made him one of the most compelling gangsters in Hollywood history. So, there you have 8 of Hollywood's most iconic stars, each defying the odds of their height with extraordinary talent, presence, and sheer willpower. From Alan Ladd's hidden trenches to Sammy Davis Jr.'s towering charisma, these stars prove that in Hollywood it's not about inches, it's about presence. Their stories remind us that star power can't be measured in feet and inches. It's the performance, the energy, the charisma that makes someone unforgettable. These legends didn't need to be giants. They were giants in the hearts of their fans, forever etched in cinematic history. What surprised you the most about these stars? Were you shocked by their height secrets, or did it change the way you see them? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe to follow the secrets of the biggest icons in history.